As always, donate to Jumpstart. Jumpstart helps economically disadvantaged kids play team sports, which is something that's near and dear to Rachel and I's hearts. So if you go to the links in this description below, pretty much all the information that you will need to donate is there. So we really encourage you, if you can, to do so. Again, it's a great cause. We love Jumpstart. They are our charity of choice. If you can, please donate. All right. Well, dearly beloved, we are gathered here today to lay to rest I would say the most annoying era in professional sports history.
Breaking news, the Maple Leafs have re-signed Mitch Marner.
Okay. We're going to get, I think you might be surprised by my, you might be surprised when we get into talking about Mitch Marner. You might be surprised by some of my comments and not usually in the way where it's like, oh my God, we're going to have to bleep all that. Like it's, I've had a lot of time to think, a lot of time to reflect. But yeah, you look, the Toronto Maple Leafs, yeah.
Let's do a whole episode about our frustration with the Leafs without swearing.
Ooh, that's gonna be tough, but we will.
That is, let's do it.
Let's give it a shot. I can't promise you, but I promise you, I will try my absolute best. Promise. All right. The Leafs died, or at least this core four era of the Leafs died as they lived. Annoyingly. Like, in the most annoying way possible. That's what I keep coming back to, is annoying. So, obviously, if you're listening to the show, obviously you know what happened. Leafs blew it again.
Why? What happened?
They did what everyone expected them to do, and yet, like, were stupid enough to to gaslight themselves into thinking they weren't going to do. Like, what was the number one thing?
Can I give you background
Sure.
on this?
Sure.
So funny. So, Nick is a Rangers fan. And he was like, how do you feel about it? And my dad he was in town for Game 7 visiting, because he was in New York visiting clients. So he came in a day early, was like, you know what, I haven't seen my kid in like a month and a half. Like, I'm going to go down, watch Game 7, da-da-da-da-da. And I was like, listen, after Game 5, I said, I have never been more sure about something. They are going to play like Stanley Cup champions in Game 6, and then in Game 7, I'm not sure how they're going to lose, but they're going to lose. Like, that was kind of it. So Sunday comes around, and we're going to meet my dad in Manhattan, and there's no public transit because there's a strike, and if anyone's driven in New York traffic on a regular day, it's not great, and when there's no public transit, it's like 10 times as bad. So we're driving in there, and Nick goes, I'm not really happy that you don't have a positive attitude about this game. And I said, no, make no mistake. I am emotionally prepared for them to lose so that it's not like a heartbreaking loss, and if they win, I will probably cry tears of joy. Because I was 6 years old the last time they played in a conference final. Like, that was kind of where I was at mentally. I said, so I'm just kind of setting myself up so that I'm not disappointed. It was more like, hey, yeah, I kind of expected that. And then if they win, it's like, oh my God, this is fantastic. The way they played on Sunday night, I wasn't even disappointed. I was physically angry. Like, I was legit mad. Like,
the apathy washed over me. I watched it with my dad, and obviously my dad's a big Leafs fan, but like, he's an adult and he has to go about, his normal daily life. So he's not, on Twitter all day, or he basically, I give him Leafs update. He'll watch the games, but like, I'll give him like Leafs updates and stuff basically. And I was like, they were playing so bad that I was like embarrassed that I had like asked my dad to come over to watch this game with me. Like it felt like I invited him to like a party that sucked, Like it felt like it was that bad, You know how like you're like, all right, guys, like come on, come out tonight. Like we're gonna go to this place. It's gonna be great, I've heard it's gonna be awesome. Trust me. And then you go out and it sucks. Like it's not fun. That's what it felt like to watch that game with my own father, where I apologized. I'm like, I'm sorry. We could have, because we usually watch like a TV show. We're watching The Last of Us now, like on Sunday nights and stuff like that. And we had to we postponed that to watch the Leafs game because it's Sunday night, And I felt like embarrassed. I'm like, I'm sorry we had to put off our Last of Us, night to watch that. Like we turned it off after the after the second period. Like, it was that bad. Like, the second period was the worst period of hockey I think I've ever seen the Toronto Maple Leafs play. And that includes, like, the Paul Maurice. That includes Randy Carlyle. That includes Peter Horacek. Like, based on context, it was the worst. And it really did, like, that game really encapsulated everything that was wrong with the team. Everything that was wrong with how this era went. And I fully, like, I believed, man. The thing is, like, I deluded myself into believing that they were going to win Game 7, because you look at the math, and this is the Kyle Dubas era that deluded me into looking at the math. I'm a full boomer now. Like, this team is fully, like they've radicalized me against advanced stats, because every piece of math, every number, anything that any number you can cobble together should show that there is no way that they could blow it like this. I think it was Jay Fresh that tweeted, like, the actual, like, probability of them losing this amount of games in a row, like do or die games in a row, is, I think it's like 1 in 345 or something like that. And
yeah, it's 0.32%.
So, like,
and yet it's the Leafs, and we all know it's like 99%.
So have you seen Avengers Endgame?
Yeah, I've seen Avengers Endgame.
Yeah, okay. So you know how like Doctor Strange, in Infinity War, they're facing they're about to face Thanos, and Doctor Strange is, his face is going like that, and he's like, I just went through like 14 million sort of like scenarios of how this is going to play out, like when we face Thanos, and Tony Stark's like, Iron Man's like, how many did we win? And he's like, 1. It's like, oh no. And then like in Endgame, Tony Stark's like, is this the one? It, are we gonna in the final battle? And Doctor Strange is like, this is the one. We're in the one, but it is the one. Like, Doctor Strange did the 14 million things with his head going like that, and it's like, how many do we win? And they're like, oh, 13,999,000, and it's like, oh, so how many do we lose? 1. We're in the one. We're in the one.
I have an activity, Mike. I have an activity. And we are going to do this on the fly. I'm going to make Mike do this on the fly. We are going to, and because I don't know all of the Avengers, Mike is going to do this. We are going to assign a Toronto Maple Leaf to every single Avenger. I
mean, sure, but like, I'll just have to do like Avengers that are dead. Like, because these Leafs are dead men walking. Like, it's...
No, but like in a scenario where, like you said, it's like 1 in 14 million or whatever, like, okay, the Avengers. So Austin is obviously Captain America, because it kind of has to be. I feel like Matthew Nyes is Hulk. Wait, who is the Avenger that's like always good no matter what?
That's Captain America. See, I would put Marner as Iron Man just because he's super, like, he's overpaid and he's cocky and all that. But they're all, you know what? Like, I can't even do this exercise. They're all Hawkeye to me. They're all irrelevant.
all of you, Hawkeye. Goodbye.
They're all Hawkeye.
Good day,
They're all
sir.
Hawkeye or Quicksilver from Avengers: Age of Ultron, who got shot 15 times and never came back. Like, he died. Spoiler alert for a movie that's almost 10 years old now. Like, it's... So,
okay, so we can't even name Avengers.
We can't even do it because the Avengers win, Rachel.
Yeah,
the Avengers
true.
win. They save the day. They go, like, even when they lost, they literally time traveled back and won the next time. Like, it's...
So they're the Toronto Maple Leafs are the anti-Avengers.
They're the anti-Avengers. Like, the Leafs find... Like, here's the thing. Captain America, his slogan is, like, I can do this all day. Like, he's... Like, yes, he's got the super soldier serum, but really he's a guy who's just a little bit stronger than everybody. And he goes up against interplanetary people and you know, armies and stuff, and he just, like, he doesn't give up. That's his thing. Just keeps going. And the Leafs are the opposite of that. Like they gave up. They let in that goal by Seth Jones, and they gave up. So, like,
man,
I can't...
Where are we at as a society where Seth Jones is the best player on the ice?
We're
in a
here.
Series that includes Sasha Barkov, Sam Reinhart, Matthew Tkachuk, who, by the way, was absolutely horrendous in that
The whole series. Yeah. Sam Bennett wasn't good in that series either.
No, but you know who was good? The dude who's 5-0 against the Leafs in Game 7.
So
Brad
where do you want to begin? I'll leave this up to you. Where do you want to begin? Do you want to talk about the pressure playing in Toronto? Do you want to talk about where they go from here? Do you want to talk about, like potential changes? What do you want to talk about first?
Let's talk about the pressure, because I think that kind of gives way to
Okay. Rachel,
changes and everything. You're gonna ask me about pressure, aren't you?
So you're a Bayern Munich fan,
I am.
I want to know how any of
18
those
18 jerseys sitting over there. 18. I counted today.
The amount of jerseys that you have of Bayern Munich is legal.
True.
That's how many you have. Now, I want you to know, because you've insight into the players and all that. How do any of them function with the amount of crushing pressure that they have to deal with?
I honestly, this is where I straight up don't buy the garbage of the pressure, because like you just pointed out, Bayern Munich, Real Madrid, Liverpool. I think Liverpool is probably the closest comp to the Toronto Maple Leafs, because Liverpool didn't win a league title or a Champions League for like 35 or 40 years, despite like being one of the top spending teams. And there's no salary cap in soccer, just to be clear.
That's like half of Toronto's drought right now.
Yeah, so like it's kind of one of those things where I look at the pressure and like, first of all, there's fandom and fanatics in hockey. There's not hooliganism. There is hooliganism in European football. And I'm talking about the fact that Congress, or like the Parliament in England, had to pass a law about harassing professional athletes because Bukayo Saka, who is an English footballer, he also plays for Arsenal, got so much racism and vitriol hurled at him for simply missing one penalty kick, not 9 years of failure, one time as a 19-year-old. Got such, like, vitriol and whatever. He had to move his family because people were, like, threatening his parents. And, like, the racism that was being spewed. And you have people in Italy making monkey noises at players of color. And you have people accosting players in the street. In Bayern Munich, this is a great example, because Bayern is expected to win every year. Last year was the first year in my entire lifetime where they didn't win one trophy. Every year there are 6 available trophies to win, depending on like how you finished the previous season. Last year was the first time in my lifetime they didn't win a single trophy, and everybody lost their job. Every single person pretty much in the office lost their job, from the coach to the travel person to the PR person, like everybody. And they told star players, "Good day, sir, get out." Like, don't even ask. This year, they get eliminated in Champions League in the quarterfinal. It wasn't a great performance. They win 1 trophy out of 6. And what happens? They go to 3 of their stars and go, "We're not offering you a contract extension. Thank you, goodbye." And this team won the league, and they were like, "Nope, not good enough. Thank you, goodbye." In Germany, for the World Cup, the Euro was just in Germany. I was there.
Yeah.
They bowed out. It was kind of expected that we were going to make the semis of the finals. They bowed out early. People it ended up happening. The nation called for the president of the National Football Federation to step down. And the pressure got so bad over one game that he did. So 11 years of failure, 9 years, whatever, like whatever you want to call it, they would burn the stadium down if this kind of behavior percolated, and endorsement deals and this and that. Like, genuinely, the pressure associated with being a hockey player. To give you an idea, one Bayern Munich player, and not even like Harry Kane or Alphonso Davies, one Bayern Munich player who sits on the bench has more Instagram followers combined than every Toronto Maple Leaf combined. That is the level of soccer, like, that is the level of pressure that you play with. And the expectations, you have 80,000 fans chanting at you. You have people blasting fireworks off mid-game in your stadium. And then you can't go, I was out with a player when I was in Munich. He could not go out for dinner without people yelling at him in the street. Like, genuinely outrageous. So to me, the narrative that the pressure is too much is garbage. It is absolute garbage.
It's ridiculous. Like, listen, Toronto definitely is like a fishbowl. There's a ton of pressure. I mean, and it'll sort of streamline into our conversation about Mitch Marner. Like, look, there have been a lot of instances where he has gotten, and Chris Johnson reported on this, the stuff I've heard about and everything, where like there have been instances with him where, stuff is being bordered on harassment, interactions,
But that's great. Do we need to pass a law because it's gotten so bad and people need to be thrown in jail? No.
Exactly. But the thing
is
about...
it a daily occurrence? No.
So I have a funny story to tell. And I also haven't asked permission to tell this story, but I'm just going to do it anyway, because who cares? So I have a friend. I went to high school with her. She lives in Vancouver now, but she has a friend who lives on the same street as Mitch Marner now. Okay. And funnily enough, Mitch Marner lives in a house, the house that Mitch Marner, I believe, lives in now. And again, I don't it used to be. I don't know what neighborhood this is. I don't know where, whatever.
And we're definitely not going to say what neighborhood.
And we're definitely not going to say that. But
we don't need that.
And I believe that. And again, she could look. She could be lying straight up to me about this. But the house Mitch Marner lives in right now, used to be lived in by the Domi family. Like Ty and
no,
Max.
that is correct.
Okay, yes. Okay, good. I just wanted to make sure, because I have no way of fact checking that, but this person would have absolutely no reason to lie. She's a very dear friend of mine. And when the Domi family was living in that house, they were consummate neighbors. There's a funny story. So they their house sort of borders on a park, and they would always take as many pictures as possible, but they were my friend's friend neighbors in that house, and she had never talked to Max. Keep in mind, this is when Max is a teenager or whatever. I guess during summers when he was coming back from London and all that. She's never had a conversation with him, but she's trampolined with him, because Max would just hop the fence and start bouncing on their trampoline. And so
wild.
And they would just bounce in silence together, it's the weirdest thing. Mitch Marner, on the other hand, is not a very well liked neighbor because he doesn't like attention. So, anyone tries to pet his dog when he takes a dog for a walk, no, thank you. Anytime he's outside of his house, he gets annoyed that people come up to him and stuff like that, and that's fine. If you don't like if you don't like the attention, that is fine. I'm not here to audit, how people are, because honestly, I'm a pretty sort of introverted person. I probably wouldn't like stepping out of my, if I'm going to the corner to grab some chips or something, and I'm in sweatpants, or maybe I'm walking my dog or something, and someone's like, "Oh, can I get an autograph? All this? Oh, why didn't you score?" Blah, blah, blah. I wouldn't like that either. So I'm going to sympathize with that, absolutely. But there are certain players that are born and bred for this market. Obviously William Nylander. It's a reason why they gave an 8-year extension and the most lucrative contract in team history, is because they know that guy does not care what people say about him. But
he doesn't read it. The man rides the subway.
Yeah, he doesn't read it. He doesn't care. But a player like Marner, and a lot of that has to do with the people who are around him, but because they tell him and they feed him this stuff, but everything sticks to him. He's the opposite of Teflon. He's Velcro. He's, you know, like he's being dipped in honey, you know, like it's, and,
So you talk about Mitch Marner's reaction. We can say it now because he doesn't live there anymore. Morgan Riley and I used to live in the same building. And I would see Morgan and Tessa all the time, which is how I knew Tess was pregnant. But like deliberately, she knew that I worked in hockey. Obviously, Morgan did because I've known Morgan for a long time. Deliberately asked me not to say anything. And I was like, I absolutely promise I will never do that. Like that, I knew they were married, but like it's not my place to say something. Morgan, I will never forget this. There's 3 elevators in my building. You've been to my building. You know what this is like. Morgan Riley would go to the front desk and pick up his stuff, pick up Tessa's stuff, whatever. He would take out the garbage. I will never forget this one day. This little kid comes in and he's got this like Toronto Maple Leaf beanie on and he's got a Toronto Maple Leaf backpack and lunchbox. He's coming home from school. I guess he's like a daycare or whatever. It was like 2:30 in the afternoon. Morgan Riley's getting home from practice, I'm assuming.
Does he have a little hat with like a propeller on it? Like
No, it had like the little Leafs logo. It was
That's funny.
so cute. Like it was a beanie. It was so cute. This kid must have been 4 or 5 years old, like a child. And Morgan and I are in the elevator coming from the parking deck, and this kid gets in on the ground floor. He gets in and he realizes who he's standing in the elevator with.
he's like,
His eyes go boom. And he was like, oh! And his dad was like, buddy, it's okay, it's okay. Morgan Riley reaches his hand out and goes, what's up, buddy? High five. And this kid, I thought this kid was going to pass out. He was like, oh my goodness, it's Morgan Riley. Like, just so freaking excited. Like, just absolutely incredible. And Morgan, like, was talking to him for however long we were in the elevator, probably like 35 or 40 seconds. And this kid was over the moon about just talking to Morgan Riley and was like, I want to play hockey like you and I want to like do all this stuff. And Morgan Riley was like, that's awesome, buddy. Like you dream big, like, all this stuff, gives him high five. It's time to get off the elevator. He's like, bye, Morgan Riley. I love you. Adorable. The dad just looks at him and goes, go Leafs, go. And he looks at him and goes, thanks. Him and I continue our ride up the elevator shaft because we live on the same floor. And he's like, eh. And I'm like, that was kind of cute. Like, really well done. He goes, he's a young kid. Like, what am I not going to do? Give the kid a hug? Like, come on.
yeah.
That is the difference. Which
That
is why
yeah.
running Morgan Riley out of town, regardless of how he played this year, 1, had a kid, 2, there's stuff going on with his family that, like, I don't think is necessary. Like, there's a lot going on in a player's life when they have a new kid, right? And he's also married to Tessa Virtue. He doesn't just have a typical hockey wag. Everyone trying to run this guy out of town, I feel like they don't realize he's kind of like William Nylander and that he is built to play here.
Yeah, and like if we want to talk about stylistically with Riley, like I obviously love him as a person, and I really enjoy him as a player. Do I think he's a fit for the system that this coach is running? I don't think so. And you know, if you're gonna look at contracts, like you have to be ruthless. Like I think he's one, but then again, who knows? Like this guy, keep in mind, this guy scored 74 points or something in 1 year. Like it's or 70 points, or whatever.
And he
it was.
also
Like,
has a no move.
yeah, he also has a no move, so you can just say no. And believe me, we've seen players, you know, say no.
And I'm gonna say this: I do not have one issue with
No,
Mitch
me neither.
Marner not waiving his no move. That was his right. His wife is pregnant.
His wife was like 8 months pregnant when they went to him with that. Like, what do you expect him to be like? Yeah, sure, let's move to Carolina. You know, like why not? Like
now, if he turns around and signs with Carolina now, I get all of the hate because it's like, are you goddamn kidding me? But at the time he exercised his no move clause, I had no problem with that at all. But I think the point here is you break down what Mitch Marner's like as a neighbor, and then you've got a kid getting in the elevator with Morgan Riley, and it's Morgan Riley that initiates the interaction because he can see the kid is like starstruck and has no idea what to do. That is the difference. And like William Nylander is a lunatic. I'm not going to say where he lives, but like The guy walks around shirtless in the summer, just walking his dogs, and nobody where he lives, because everyone is obscenely rich in that neighborhood. Nobody cares. Everyone leaves him alone, and off he goes. He just does his thing. Matthew Nyes, the same thing. Matthew Nyes freaking loves being a Leaf. Like that guy, we talk about this. I will tell you right now, I am not remotely worried about an offer sheet for him. Not
You
even
shouldn't
a
be.
little bit.
Holy, first, okay, I don't want to get into a non sequitur, but like, how many other RFAs in other markets get asked those questions about RFAs or about offer sheets? Like, it's ridiculous. I
You know
listen.
who should be the number one RFA discussion point right now?
Whomst.
Marco Rossi in Minnesota. Because Minnesota has to sign Kirill Kaprizov this summer. They're going to lose him in free agency next year. And Marco Rossi is somebody that's up for a contract, and it doesn't seem like Bill Guerin particularly likes for God knows what reason. That's the guy that needs to be the topic of conversation. Because if I'm the Islanders, hell, if I'm the Leafs, that's my second line center.
Mm-hmm.
Never mind Matthew Nyes offer sheet, Marco Rossi. The Canucks could offer sheet him. That guy is going to be the number one target, and he should be.
So, where do we even, like, okay. I've been seeing a lot of interesting discourse since this game happened, since the season's over. And it was reported today that the Islanders have requested permission to interview Brendan Shanahan for their sort of president role. And the Leafs have granted it. And that is totally fine.
I fully expect him to end up there.
I want to know, are the Islanders insane? Because I don't think you could have, like, Brendan Shanahan, when he got here, he did a lot of good things. He repaired he repaired the relationship with a lot of alumni, especially Dave Keon. You know, you have like an absolute franchise legend that was ostracized from the organization for a long time. You repaired that. He instituted Legends Row. He, raised all those banners, like retired all those numbers at the same time in a very, very cool sort of gesture.
I would say the first 5 years of Shanahan's tenure were exceptional.
Were fantastic.
Yeah.
However, and it sounds like there's a crime being committed right outside my apartment with the siren. But
someone is doing the crimes.
Someone's doing a crime. But everything that is wrong with the Leafs right now, and obviously like the players take a lot of blame for that, but I'm talking like he's the guy who put them there, is Brendan Shanahan's fault. He could not have handled pretty much every negotiation with these big stars, specifically Nylander and Mitch Marner, the wrong way. And when you had a chance, when you had a parachute, when you had an opportunity to trade Mitch Marner, you let your ego get in the way. You voluntarily tell people as you're driving down the Gardner on your way home from the office that you don't want to bring Kyle Dubas back. Kyle Dubas was going to trade Mitch Marner in the summer of 2023. He had no trade protection, and Dubas was pretty unsubtle about the fact that this guy's gone. I'm ready for change.
Kyle Dubas also tried to trade Mitch Marner in the summer of 2022.
Yeah.
And
what stopped them then?
The same guy. So I was
interesting how that works.
NHL team in 2022. We need not name them. And it was kind of percolating. You have conversations. And here's the thing. You don't have to be involved. Like, by no means am I saying Mitch Marner was going to be a Canuck. In fact, I'm telling you that was not the case. But GMs talk. They bounce things off of each other. And when you have a guy like Jim Rutherford, who's been in the league for literally an eon at this point, like him and Lou, just been there for time, right? People call and they're like, yeah, what do you think? And they talk. They just shoot the shit. Like, that's literally what these guys do. Is they drink and talk, right? That's how things get leaked. That's literally what happens. And we knew that in 2022 that the Leafs had an offer for Mitch Marner. And from what I had heard, it was a legitimate, like, I would take the deal kind of offer. And it ultimately obviously did not happen. And it didn't seem like it got out, although there were rumors like, are they going to make a change kind of situation? Because I believe that was the Tampa Bay series.
It was the one where they lost in Game 7 at home.
Right, with Nick Paul doing Nick Paul things.
And like it was the, what's it called? The pick. The Justin Hall pick.
Yes, you're right. So that was on the table back then. And then in 2023 is the one that everyone had kind of heard about. But so Brendan Shanahan made a lot of great decisions at the beginning of his tenure. I also don't think he made a bad decision by letting Lou walk and letting Kyle take over.
Definitely
but there
not.
are two decisions that he made that will ultimately be his legacy in Toronto. When he let Lou walk, he allowed the blue and white disease to creep back in. The moment Lou left, all of those rules went away, and I'm sorry to say, but we can look at it now and go, some people in that locker room could really use an ass kicking by Lou Lamoriello right now in terms of the rules, right? And all the garbage. Like, I can confidently say that if Lou was the GM, we might have some terrible contracts on the books. We wouldn't have a lot of this nonsense, though. Like, there would not be a lot of that. So that was mistake one, is not keeping the rules that Lou implemented. And rule number two, or fatal flaw number two, was, like you said, he allowed his ego to get in the way. His job is to be the president of the Toronto Maple Leafs. And the president of the Toronto Maple Leafs oversees things like marketing and business and ticketing and like the business operations.
Promo nights.
Of the Toronto Maple Leafs. Like, he has meetings, all that. His job is not to sign Mitch Marner to a contract extension. So when Kyle Dubas says, I am trading Mitch Marner, his job is not to step in and say no. He's not the president. So the best example I can give you is in Vancouver. Jim Rutherford is the president of hockey operations. Michael Doyle is the president of the Vancouver Canucks. Brendan Shanahan has Michael Doyle's job, not Jim Rutherford's job. So if Jim Rutherford wants to come in and say, we're signing whomever to what, he's the president of the hockey department. That is literally his job. If Michael Doyle walked in and said, I want to sign this guy, Jim Rutherford would be like, get out of my office. Which is exactly what Larry Tannenbaum, and I think part of this issue is the ownership structure with Bell and Rogers not being able to get like together and kind of using Larry as like their guy. Somebody in ownership needed to tell Shanahan that he's overseeing the business operations. It's Kyle's call on whether or not they trade Marner. That was the fatal decision. Shanahan let his ego get in the way. And ultimately, not only is the fan base furious, it's going to be his sword to fall on.
Not only is the fan base furious, but ownership and the fan base are embarrassed. I think that is the key here, because the fan base has been furious after every loss. The fan base was furious in 2021 when they blew it to the Canadians. The fan base,
that arguably was more like, outside of maybe Game 7, that's arguably the most embarrassing performance by this team. Like,
the fan base was embarrassed, 2020 when they didn't even make the playoffs. They lost in the qualifying round to the Columbus Blue Jackets, And I know it was like, and just so happened that they were the one team that had home ice advantage and they still blew it. Like, literally the one team in that entire 21 or 22 team bubble, between two, it was them and the Oilers. That was it. Crazy. But Brendan Shanahan, it's the ego that got in the way. Think about how many, and again, I love Matthew Nyes. He's probably my favorite Leaf at this point. But think about how many.
I will be legit. I think you and I are kind of on the same page here. We'll be legit pissed if he's not re-signed to a long-term extension.
Yeah, I think he'll be re-signed. They might bridge him just for that sense, but it'd be stupid.
8 years, $8 million. Thanks.
Yeah, there you go. But think about how many trades that have leaked out that Shanahan like straight up didn't do. Or how many trades that he stepped in the way of. Like there's that infamous Hagel and Fleury for Nyes and like a first, or Nyes and 2 firsts, I think it was. You know, Shanahan went in and nixed that. Letting the ego get in the way of the Marner situation, caving in negotiation to give him everything he could have wanted. And then you have 4 years of that deal to decide whether or not you want to trade him until before he basically owns his future. And his
agent's Darren Ferris, like who is notorious for saying, I'm taking my guys to free agency.
Yeah. So like you knew this was happening. You had a window and you knew that this was going to happen. And so instead of trading this guy, you on a whim, because this guy was basically like trying to sort of short change you for a couple extra dollars in his next contract, you fire the GM that's about to do it on your way home from the facility when you're driving on the Gardner. He told us that. I was at that press conference.
Yeah.
Like that's the ego getting in the way.
I couldn't even believe what I was hearing at that point.
Oh, it was surreal. I was in the room and
also,
we were all just like,
how vindicated does Kyle Dubas feel right now?
Hey man, listen. Kyle Dubas is responsible for a lot of the crap that's in here too. Like I'm.
Oh,
like,
he is. Not this though.
Not this though. But I think like Shanahan, and then like during the William Nylander contract negotiation, coming out and saying, "Oh yeah, we all took a little less to try and win." You know, like I remember that press conference. You know, like you didn't. Like you didn't have a salary cap back then, man. Like it's so Brendan Shanahan.
There are two players on this roster, on the Toronto Maple Leafs roster, who objectively took less than they could have on an open.
Yeah, one of them is Morgan Riley.
John Tavares was offered $13 million by the San Jose Sharks. So you might not like his contract at 11. The fact of the matter is he could have had 13. So he took $2 million less. Morgan Riley, it was an open and shut argument that he was going to get $8.5 or $9 million on the open market. And we can quibble with what that would look like now. But at the end of the day, at the time he signed that contract, he took less. And because he took less and Tavares took less, the Leafs had an extra $3.5 million to play with, which they then proceeded to give to David Kampf. Like, you and I were sitting in a studio the day that David Kampf was signed, and my head almost fell off when that happened. How is it that, and Brad Treliving has completely remade the Leafs defense core. I absolutely love Chris
I love
Tanev.
the defense core.
I love Brandon Carlo. Kyle Dubas' acquisition of Jake McCabe was nothing short of
was spectacular,
incredible, right? Why does Yanni Hakanpää have trade protection?
Why does David Kampf have trade protection? Why does Calle Jarnkrok? I don't want to sound mean.
Yanni Hakanpää did not play one game this year. Why does he have trade protection?
He played two, Rachel. He played 2 games.
Oh, good. Yeah, okay.
I don't want to be too mean, but coming off after this series, I don't think I've ever seen a more useless hockey player than Calle Jarnkrok. Based on where he has played in the lineup and his salary.
Ryan Reeves exists, Mike. Oh, by the way, Ryan Reeves too.
Ryan Reeves. God. Yeah, he's, by the way, another year on that deal.
Why?
Another year. Because he had to give him 3. If he didn't give him 3, then he would have lost him. I love OEL.
No. Oh God, OEL was a really good signing.
I love OEL, but Treliving. This is where I think Treliving's done a really good job so far. I mean, obviously there's like some contracts like he's basically, I think his first summer was terrible. His second summer was awesome. Like his
Correct.
first summer,
Totally
his first summer was John Klingberg, Ryan Reeves, David Kampf, Tyler Bertuzzi on a 1-year deal, Max Domi on a 1-year deal. You know, guys like that. And Bertuzzi was okay. And Domi earned himself a long-term deal. But all 3 of those players are either not on the team anymore or were in the press box. But then the second summer, I did a phenomenal job.
Oh,
you know,
Chris Tanev, man.
Chris Tanev, Anthony Stolarz, you know, getting trade, like, and it wasn't in the
Steven
summer,
Lorentz
but
getting Joseph
Steven,
Wool signed.
Max Pacioretty was
Oh,
almost a point per
oh,
game player in the freaking playoffs. And then you look at the defense, like getting Brandon Carlo. I thought Brandon Carlo was fantastic, and you give him another summer to like acclimate to the system. He's exactly the kind of defenseman they were looking for. You know, having a defense core with McCabe, Tanev, and Carlo on it is like that gives them 3 legitimate shutdown defensemen. If you want to, on each pairing, like it's fantastic. You know, he signed Simone Benoit to that extension, and like you say what you will about his regular season, but Benoit had an unbelievable playoffs. Like
he's also making like
1.3
negligible money at this point.
He makes he makes a variable. Contract. He makes the same as freaking Ryan Reeves. He makes a variable amount of money.
Yeah, and he's actually I will say this: he plays a lot better than $1.3 million.
Absolutely. What could like Simone Benoit on the open market would get like 2.5 to 3, I think, at this point. Like if Joel Edmondson got what he did.
I thought Oliver Ekman-Larsson was good this
fantastic.
Year too.
It was a great deal.
He read the D-core, and the D-core, I think, honestly, is probably top 10 in the league at this point. Like,
oh yeah,
legit. Now where they struggle and it needs to be addressed is puck moving, because all 4 teams in the Final Four are ranked like in the top 12 in various puck moving metrics. I would have loved to have seen him try to acquire a guy like Jake Wallman. I think he would have been somebody like that was worth kind of an acquisition. Mario Ferraro out of San Jose is a guy that pops up, like obviously playing on a really crappy team, but that guy can really move the puck. And I think that there's something there. And so
that's where Morgan Riley really struggled this year.
Yeah, now Morgan Riley was much better with Brandon Carlo, and I do wonder, like you said, once Brandon Carlo gets a summer under his belt and training camp and all that, like I really do wonder if we see, because when Brandon Carlo played with Charlie McAvoy, that's when Charlie McAvoy was at his best. I'm not for a second suggesting Morgan Riley is Charlie McAvoy, but what I'm saying is it allowed Charlie to play more free, and perhaps it allows Morgan to play more free. And if Morgan Riley gets back to 65 points next year, like they're cooking at that point, because then you have a legit pair with Carlo and Riley, and you have a top shutdown pair with McCabe and Tanev, and then you have Benoit and Ekman-Larsson. Love it. Cool. Fine.
Someone I'm really interested to see, like, obviously because he's a defenseman, I don't think he'll be able to make the jump this year yet, but I really think that Ben Danford will be a great fit, and I'm really excited to see him get maybe an extended run in training camp, because I think that's exactly the kind of guy they need right now, like a young, sort of puck moving but hard hitting guy. I think he fits. I think he's a great sort of hybrid player that Berube would really sort of like feast with. I
think he can be a better version of Jake McCabe.
Yeah, and that's great.
Which, cool.
Yeah. But so we talked a bit about Marner. He's gone. There's no way he's coming back.
And let's be clear. Like, you don't replace Mitch Marner in your lineup, but that's kind of the point, is that the Leafs are too top heavy. There is too much of that, and I genuinely cannot believe I'm about to say this. I would rather have the combination of Zach Hyman and Nazem Kadri in the lineup
without
for the
a doubt.
Same price
without a doubt.
Mitch Marner. And obviously neither of those guys are available, but what I'm saying is the Leafs fundamentally lack a certain level of oomph in their lineup, and both Hyman and Kadri not only had it, but they have the ability to score, and that matters. Do I think it's a good idea to spend $9 million on Sam Bennett? No, I think that's a genuinely awful idea. But I would rather see the Leafs go out and spend that money on 2, maybe 3 players. I was having this conversation with somebody. Let's say Mitch Marner asks, round number, $14 million, right? With $14 million, what if you could sign Aaron Ekblad and Matt Duchene and Brad Marchand? I would certainly rather have those 3 on my roster than one Mitch Marner, because it provides balance. I'm not for a second. I think Ekblad is gone. I don't think he's signing in Florida, but it's a matter of where he signs. Now, I think
he'll sign in Detroit. That's where I think
Yeah,
he's going.
potentially. I think if you can get Tavares for $5 million as your third line center, and you can bring in a guy like Matt Duchene, a 1-2-3 of Matthews, Duchene, Tavares is really good. The other guy that I really would like the Leafs to go after is Mason Marchment. I think a third line that has Easton Cowan, John Tavares, and Mason Marchment on it would be a royal pain in the butt to play against.
Wow, where did Mason Marchment start his career?
Hard to say.
Dude, Mason Marchment and I started our careers at the same time. I remember talking to him about Fortnite in the bowels of Rico Coliseum. It was still called Rico at that time. You know, like, you know who I think the Leafs should go after? Dennis Malgin. You know, they were traded for each other 1 for 1.
Okay, so here's a question for you. Would you rather have Nikolai Ehlers and Mason Marchment, Nikolai Ehlers and Matt Duchene, or Mitch Marner?
At this point, anyone but Marner. Like, Mitch Marner is a phenomenal hockey player.
Spreading the wealth around.
Yeah, I would like either of those than Mitch Marner. Mitch Marner is a phenomenal hockey player, and yes, I've made it pretty clear my feelings on him. But like, we can't doubt, like, this is a 100-point winger who is being nominated for the Selke. Like, he's a phenomenal hockey player. He's
an elite two-way threat.
Exactly. He will never win anything in Toronto. He is not built for it. He shrinks at the biggest moments. He held out and sewered his reputation essentially to get money to be paid like the top elite players in the league. And every single time the spotlight has been on him to prove that he is worth the money that he sewered his own reputation for, he has not just not shown up. He has he's walked into the building, pooped on the floor, and slipped in the poop. Like, he is like that is how bad it has been. You talk about how bad this core is in deciding games, and all of them at least have double-digit points in the at least 18, 19 games. Mitch Marner's played 20 games, 5, 6, and 7. He's got 7 assists and 0 goals. And this happened. He had
9 assists now.
Oh, sorry, 9 assists. He
not double digits, by the way.
He had 3 total combined shots in the final 5 games of this series.
That is
Do you ever hear of a Rantanen, of a McKinnon, of a McDavid, of a Draisaitl, of anyone of that caliber, like Kaprizov's lost in the first round in the last 4 years straight?
Every single year. He's never played in the second round.
Exactly. However, he shows up.
He not the problem. He doesn't take
nearly as much criticism because he shows up. Mitch Marner, this is what people don't get. It's not just that they keep losing because everyone says you can't blame it all on Mitch Marner. That's true. You can't blame it all on him. However, when the team has to commit tax fraud to stay under the salary cap, when they have to basically paper people that you've never even heard of up and down on every other day, just to essentially milk the CBA for all it's worth, just to stay cap compliant, because this guy and the people around him fought tooth and nail and tried to hammer the Leafs for an extra, $1 million AAV. When if he had just signed an 8-year, 10 on the dot deal and just left it at that, he would have been beloved. But instead, he had to go, I want 10, 8, 9, 3. I want my junior number in there. All that kind of stuff.
In his last year, the Marner camp said, we'll do 8 by 8. And the Leafs were like, no, we're going to wait. That was a mistake by Lou.
Yeah.
But to come back and be like, actually, I want 10.893. Okay. I beg your pardon.
But so it was a mistake by Lou, yes. But we've made it very clear now that who has ultimate autonomy over hockey operations decisions?
Brendan.
It's Brendan Shanahan. He is responsible for all of this. Brendan Shanahan is like Ronald Reagan.
And also, and this is
let me elaborate. Let me elaborate on my metaphor here.
Because wow.
Brendan Shanahan is like Ronald Reagan, because if you look at pretty much any messed up thing in the United States right now, you can trace it back to Ronald Reagan. You look at the plane crashes, you look at train crashes, you look at all this kind of stuff. You look at war on drugs, you look at all that. You can trace it back to a policy that Reagan pushed through. And That is what Brendan Shanahan is like. You look at any problem on this team, you can trace it back to a dumb decision that Brendan Shanahan made that was either ego-based or it was, like old boys club incompetence-based.
And here's the thing, is Mitch Marner might be a great teammate. We have no proof either way, other than Matthews coming out, clearly they're friends, and whatever the case may be. I don't have a problem with all of the charity work that Mitch Marner does, with all of the sticks he gives away in warm-up, with the chocolate bars and the dog toys. I have no problem with any of that. I think it's fantastic. Here's what I have a problem with. He needs to rein his camp in. And this might not be an issue if he goes and plays in Utah or he goes and plays in Columbus, but if he goes and plays in Chicago, it's going to be an issue. You cannot have your father, your brother, your brother-in-law, and your stupid security fighting your battles for you to the point where some of them are banned from establishments in the Greater Toronto Area for their conduct. That is unacceptable. And it's to the point where, I don't know if you saw this, but Rick Vive, former captain of the Toronto Maple Leafs, and people can talk about, oh, he didn't win anything. That's great. He's the former captain, and he's
Neither is
50
Marner.
goals as a Leaf.
Neither is Marner.
And he wrote an article and called out Marner specifically, basically saying you don't have what it takes. And let me tell you something. My father golfs with enough Leafs alumni at his golf club to know that if Rick Vive is saying that in a newspaper article, he ain't the only Leaf alumni that feels that way. That's the thing.
So there are big changes.
Yeah, I heard Dangle's podcast pointed out. I've heard CJ pointed out. Mike Johnson is a Leafs alumni. Jeff O'Neill is a Leafs alumni. And we all have heard them speak about it. But we're talking like some of the older school, the guys who played in the 60s, who Mike won Stanley Cups. At the end of the day, yes, social media is a thing. Yes, there's more media attention because of technology and this, that, and the other. But if Rick Vive, who's a former captain of the Toronto Maple Leafs, is coming out and saying, you don't have what it takes to play for the Toronto Maple Leafs, you have got to go. Because Wendell Clark was given the opportunity to talk about the core four, and do you know who he chose to talk about, Mike?
Who?
Matthew Nyes. He was given the opportunity to talk about the core four and what they mean, and he said, I think Matthew Nyes is on the cusp of being something really special. Right by the question, but that's an answer in and of itself. And I'm not saying all of the core four. William Nylander was terrible in games 5 and 7. Mm-hmm. William Nylander was the Leafs' best player in the playoffs this year. Mm-hmm. He absolutely, first of all, they don't even get through the first round series without him. He was fantastic. But when you have Leafs alumni who have accomplished things, like, do you not think there's a reason that guys like Ty Domi, whose son plays for the team, don't speak? Gary Roberts doesn't say anything. Matt Sundin,
Joe Nieuwendyk, any of these guys, yeah.
And not to mention, Doug Gilmour does not say anything. That in and of itself should be a message to the fans, to hockey operations. I was in the building so many times the last couple of years, and so were you. How many times did you see Dave Keon there?
Very, very little.
Maybe twice? Mm-hmm. I saw Daryl Sittler there, and every single time I saw him, he was shaking his head.
So where do the Leafs go from here? Like, what happens now?
That's a tough one. I mean, there's still no scheduled press conference.
For management. They have their locker clean out.
Yeah. I think we're all kind of...
We know what's happening.
Pretty much. Yeah, like, we know that Shanahan's not coming back, but I think it'll be interesting to see, because now Keith Pelly's had a year to evaluate whatever he is evaluating. Nobody really knows. And I can say, like, he had a year to evaluate Toronto FC, and the letter he put out to the season seat holders was horrendous. like not good at all. So that doesn't bode well. The sale for Bell to Rogers has to go through. I think there's like a lot going on here. So, oh man, it's tough. I don't want them paying $9 million for Sam Bennett. 7.5, cool.
I don't even want that.
John Tavares.
Sam Bennett will be in federal prison by like, November next year if he does this stuff he does.
Okay, I need to ask you something, because
Sure.
I saw this and heard this. Elliot Friedman on 32 Thoughts said there's no way Sam Bennett could sign in Toronto because he would get suspended 60 times for what he's doing. And whether or not that's tongue-in-cheek, that's like a straight-up admission from the league's best insider that Toronto is punished differently than any other team.
Yeah, it's not a surprise. It happens.
Like, what are we doing? You know where Brendan Shanahan needs to go, Mike? Back to being the department head of player safety, because he was actually so good at that job.
He was, but if you think that the Leafs fire him or let him go or don't renew his contract and he goes to player safety and you think that'll be good for the Leafs?
No.
Yeah.
I think it'll be good for the league, which is actually what I care about, because I'm really tired of watching Aaron Ekblad elbowed another guy in the head. Did you see that last night?
I'm starting to see a trend on which team these guys are all from, and yet nothing is done, ever.
And also, Aaron Ekblad is just like repeatedly elbowing dudes in the head. That's like the third one this playoffs.
Yeah. Well, Marner will leave. I think they'll re-sign Tavares for 5.5 on a 3-year, 4-year deal. They'll sign Nyes, hopefully 8x8. It'll probably be 8x9, honestly.
That's fine.
Cool,
that's fine.
Whatever. There will be a little bit of tax involved there. The cap goes up. Marner will walk. The only problem is the free agent class is not great this year. So unless you really want to go and throw a lot of money at Nikolai Ehlers, there's not a ton to really sift through. So I'm thinking trades, but they don't have a ton of assets.
So what if? Okay, so here's a question.
Mm-hmm.
What if they didn't blow the money this summer? What if they, the team without Marner, the team is still good enough to make the playoffs? What if they waited till next summer when people like Victor Hedman and Kirill Kaprizov and a guy named Connor McDavid is scheduled to be, and I don't know if you've looked at the 2026 free agent class. It might be one of the best classes in the history. Yeah. What if they just were smart and didn't spend that money?
Obviously, I mean, that sounds like a great idea, and obviously you want to, obviously McDavid, if he hadn't signed by then, I think he'll re-sign in Edmonton at this point, but if he hasn't re-signed by then, and he actually, in some crazy scenario, Connor McDavid ends up hitting the free agent market, we'll have never seen a player of that caliber hit the open market, and I think in any professional sport, honestly, I don't think...
No, Shohei Ohtani.
Yeah, it'll be like Shohei. It'll be like Shohei Ohtani. Honest to God.
Literal
but
unicorn.
That's obviously the priority, but if he's off the board, I go head first as hard as you can at Kirill Kaprizov.
Yeah.
I think he's a guy who would fit in really well here. He's kind of a nut job too, which I love. You kind of need these off-kilter dudes in the playoffs. I think he would be great, and having a team with Kaprizov and Matthews on it together is pretty dang good. That's. But other than that, I think you're set in goal. Joseph Woll will only keep getting better for the next little bit. Anthony Stoller's had the highest save percentage in the entire league this year. I think they're really good. I think you're set on defense, and the only problem is yeah, you could potentially improve with trades, but you don't have a ton of assets left. You traded your next 2-year firsts. You don't have a ton of blue chip prospects, if any. What are you going to do? Trade, Nick Robertson for a fourth or a third? That is that going to help your team right now?
One of the other guys that I think the Leafs need to take a long look at, and he's proven he can play in a hot hockey market and be an unbelievable playoff performer. I saw it with my own eyes. Is Brock Besser.
Yeah, definitely.
That's a top-line winger that can score and has more goals in the playoffs than anyone on the Leafs. So like,
Yeah.
that he figures out. Listen, his skating would be a concern. I would not want to go long term. But we're talking about a guy that's played in a very hot market.
Faced a lot of scrutiny
dealt-
in that hot market too.
Oh my God, it's crazy town over there. And in the playoffs, he can score. He can get it done. And so I do, like, I think he's not resigning in Vancouver. Like, the guy's already packed up his condo and left. But failing Ehlers, like, I do think a guy like Brock Besser, who's proven he can do it in the playoffs, is probably somebody that I would be going after, at least at the top end of the lineup.
Yeah.
Right? I think that's a better use of money than Sam Bennett.
Definitely. Well, hey, I think that's about all we have to talk about today. We're not going to do a lifeline or anything today because I think, the Leafs are a lifeline. They struggle, and it's a shame. But, Rachel, before we do head out, before I can finally eat dinner because I'm very, very hungry, would you like to leave our listeners with anything? Any wise words?
Yeah, so my friend Chanel Keenan online, you've seen her. She's been involved with the Kraken. She is in a wheelchair due to a disability that she has, and the vehicle, it's a specialized vehicle. They're raising money because they need a new one because the current one is undrivable, and so right now she doesn't have a way to get around. And we take for granted the abilities that we have to just kind of walk around, and somebody who's confined to a wheelchair doesn't have those same abilities. And so if you can do anything, donate like $10, goes a long way because every little bit helps. And Chanel is a fantastic human being. We absolutely love her. So if you could do that, just show a little bit of kindness, yeah, that'd be great.
Great. I couldn't have said it better myself. All right. We are out of here, and we will see you next week.